Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we have another interview here today. This is quite possibly the biggest person that I've had on my channel by far. This is somebody that got me through my junior and senior years of high school because I would watch his videos all the time while I was in welding class. Comicstorian, everybody.
Oh, I don't think you want to admit that because that means that just helps you not do school.
Well, I was one of the best welders in the class, so I actually had a pass to slack off and not do work sometimes.
Okay, I guess that makes it a little better.
Okay.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. The morning got all to a rough start. I had a bag of potato chips for breakfast, but hopefully the day gets a lot better. Hopefully it gets better.
I had eggs and bacon. I was like, I'll just scramble some eggs. I got some time to kill here.
I woke up too late. I wish I would have. I really wish. Okay, so the first question that we have here, could you tell me and the viewers especially a little bit more about yourself?
About me?
Yes.
Well, we never had that kind of a question. Normally it's the standard, like, how did you start? Why do you like comics? That's what everyone asks. So now you got me thinking here. So about me. The short version is I'm a person who has way too much energy and way too much ADHD. So because of that, I'm up all day working on various projects. And I've recently changed that into doing a lot of other things. But yes, the best way I'm a person who's just a ball of energy, like I'm still a 6-year-old who just had coffee ice cream for the first time ever, and I'm bouncing around the house and around everything I do all the time. So
Is coffee ice cream a real thing? Because I don't.
That is a real thing. Have you never had coffee ice cream?
I don't eat ice cream and I don't drink coffee.
Well, you might like a combination of those two things.
I can't argue with that logic. I tried to make my own coffee one time at a hospital. I put too much. It was a bad combination. It was more sugar, more cream, more sugar, more cream. I was trying to find a consistency, and it was just all bad. My mouth tasted horrible for the rest of the day. I just kept adding.
Yeah, that's not really coffee at that point. You're just having cream and sugar with a little hint of coffee.
Yeah.
Like back when I was in the army, I just got used to drinking black coffee all day. So like this is an iced coffee, so it's in a glass. Yeah. Whenever I show this, everyone's like, "You monster! You're drinking coffee from a glass."
So the next question we have here: when did you first start getting into comics and gaming?
Comics and gaming for me was when I was younger. When I was like, I don't even remember the age. Whenever the original Super Mario Brothers came out, I'm dating myself, on the original NES, my dad bought it for me. Okay. And my dad did it so that he could learn all the tricks to it and be the cool guy who would tell me how to play the game. And when did that come out? Mario Bros.
I can relate to that because my stepdad actually did the same thing with the Surf's Up video game. He would consistently bully me all the time because I could never beat his high score.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's just it. My dad did that entirely just to be able to. He would go to work and get like, okay, so there's a warp pipe. If you go to the end of this level, there's a warp pipe. Mm-hmm. And like he would show off that. So it came out in 2085 as a launch game. Okay, I was definitely too young there. So he bought it when I was older than that. Because that would have been 2. I wouldn't have been playing Mario. But he did buy it, and that's what got me into gaming. My dad did that, and it's funny because my dad also got me into comic books. He also had a comic book collection that he would let me read, but he wouldn't let me read any of the ones he thought were worth money. Yeah. So he would let me read like all the junk ones. So I still remember to this day, my first storyline was a story called Superman Time and Time Again. And I refused to read it again because I'm pretty sure my memories are better because I just remember Superman time traveling and fighting dinosaurs. And I'm just going to leave it to that. And I don't want to know what actually happened.
The first comic I would say, because like I originally started getting in after my mother took me to see Spider-Man way back in 2002 when it had originally released. After that, I started getting more and more into comics. The first run of anything that I can remember that I think I picked up offhand, I think it was Sins Past.
Shit. Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. Since Past, that was the first storyline that really got me into comics, so I definitely did enjoy that. Next question: how long have you been making content?
So officially 2012. So I was coming out, I had injured myself in the Army and they were offering me medical retirement, and my wife is not from America, so she had to get a work card. So she found a way to basically make me work on YouTube. She would film me playing video games, and then she would edit the videos and upload those. So I would go to the Army all day, and I would work for like 12 hours and then come home and play video games for like 4 or 5 hours, but not really play them because we were trying to like stage stuff.
Yeah.
And so I would do that all night, and then she would edit the videos while I was kind of scripting out what they were supposed to do. It's actually what we're doing on what I'm doing on the new gaming channel, just basically what I started YouTube with back in the day. But we basically script out what we're doing, and then we take the scenes and we find ones that fit. So it's a weird way to do like a Let's Play, because you play it for 4 hours, and then you try to find scenes that match what you want to actually say. So they still feel organic, but you're telling a story. And we started that in like 2012. And I realized the fastest way to grow on YouTube at the time was connections. So I volunteered, because I was in the Army, it was management experience. I volunteered to work at one of those gaming NCNs so that I could basically front load my own content through it.
that you know what? I can't knock that. That's a way to get it done.
And I didn't even lie. I said, I will work dirt cheap, almost free. I want some money, but I'll work for almost free, under the condition of twice a week I can front load my content to the front of the page. So we did that, and we got big enough that became like a part-time job that we were enjoying. And when I got out of the Army, I didn't like sitting around the house doing nothing, because my wife still wanted to do like 2 videos a week. So I made the comic book channel on the side under the assumption, because I looked at all the comic book channels and I'm like, none of them are over 200,000 subs. No one cares about the world of comics, especially on YouTube. So I'm just going to do this as a fun hobby on the side, just as something to keep me from driving my wife crazy.
So banking off that, going into the next question, does the date of September 18th, 2012 mean anything to you?
September 18th, 2012. No? Why?
That was the first video uploaded on the Eligible Monster channel, and it was Dark Souls.
Oh, it's the first one you can see.
Yeah.
At one point years ago, she had me go unlist all the real first ones. Because she was always like my co-host on the things. Yeah. She would like chime in, and she did not like the first, like, I want to say 3 months of content. So when the channel started to get some steam, we just started unlisting the original videos.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
So would you say Eligible Monster was your first channel? Like, is that where things got started?
Yeah, that's where it got started.
Okay. Now, where does the name Infected Crow come from?
Oh, so this tattoo right here, which is actually a warrior from Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this was a crow. That axe was a crow. And so when I first got in the Army, there was a tattoo parlor on the street, and it was at the end of, it's a place called Aggieville in Kansas, and there's like 120 bars. And at the end of the 120 bars is a tattoo parlor. And so, like, my first couple of nights there, we went from the beginning to the end of the bars. And I'm not even going to try to pretend like, oh, I went to 120. No, I got until I got drunk. And then I went to the end. And I got a tattoo of a crow that I got off the wall. I forget what they call them now, but it's just you pick one off the wall, they put it on your arm.
Yeah.
And because I was drunk and didn't know what I was doing, that got infected. So around this time, 360 had just come out, and I was like, oh, I need to get a 360, which I found at an Aldi's, which is like a grocery store. But and I brought the Xbox back to the house, and I had to set up, not the house, the barracks at the time, and I had to set up the name. Yeah. And I was still drunk because I had a huge alcohol problem back then. And I remember looking down and being like, oh, my crow's infected. Infected crow. So I named it that, and then everyone after that assumed I did it because of Resident Evil.
Actually, that story is definitely it's not what I was expecting. I thought that it was literally just a random name that you got when like, you know how Xbox back in the day, they gave you random gamer tags. Yeah. I 100% thought that's what it was, because mine was Sinkable Waif. I have no idea what that means. But
well, it's funny because Eligible Monster is the combination of two of those names. That's how my wife named it that, and that's where she got it from.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Which is funny because then everyone assumed I was the eligible monster, and it's like, no, it's just a name she got off the internet.
Okay, so now you're a part of a few different podcasts, like Absolutely Marvel and DC and Absolute Comics. Could you explain the difference between these?
So, if you've been following us for a while, you know it all started with the weekly poll. Mm-hmm. So, when I was actually a kid, I used to podcast before podcasting was a thing. I didn't think about this until more recently, but a buddy and I would drive around aimlessly and put a tape recorder between us and record ourselves with no intention of ever doing anything with it. I don't know why we did it, but we would record ourselves. Yeah, we would record ourselves and then listen back to our conversations. Like, man, we're geniuses. Like, did you hear us talking about that weird dead animal we found on the side of the road? That's incredible. So when the weekly poll started, Rob from Comics Explained approached me, said, do I want to do a podcast? And then we approached eventually Sal. That was like 6 months down the road. And we made the weekly poll. The problem with the weekly poll early on was 3 different mindsets trying to make the weekly poll work. So Rob just wanted it to be a fun joke around, buddies just get together and just happen to film it.
Yeah.
Sal wanted it to be more very business oriented where we could sell ads and things like that. And I was kind of like the middle ground of trying to do both. Like, well, we could make it fun, but what if we also sold ads? What eventually happened was the weekly poll was kind of falling apart because without a goal or direction or advertisers, as the years went on, the crew was just kind of getting tired of it, because we all started having our own projects. We all started having, I have advertising over here and I have this project going. And like Sal started Elseworlds Exchange. We all started all these different podcasts and stuff like that were doing better. Yeah. So Weekly Poll started kind of getting pushed to the back of all of that. And because Rob moved nearby, started up the Rob and Benny experiment as a way to create a high quality podcast that we could eventually get advertising for.
Yeah.
And after a year of that, Rob did not want to do anything business oriented. He didn't want to do anything centric. He wanted it to still be buddies, which is why Rob and Benny just kind of split off and I turned it into the Comics Experiment. And that was supposed to be like my only real podcast. But the problem with that podcast, and we're having that issue really right now because it's been going on for so long. The idea was to never do news, never talk about things as they come out, never talk about the new shows, because we didn't want to be another of those podcasts. We wanted to be that show that would talk about other random things in the world of comics, like what if Batman died, or what if Superman did this, and that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Like we wanted to be a different show from everyone else. That's still we just have problems finding topics now because I've been doing it for 5 years, but that show's been going just fine. But then once the Weekly Poll officially disbanded, I just kind of missed Sal, because I never got to hang out with Sal anymore. Because like Rob and I would still see each other locally, still go get food, chat. But Sal lives in New Jersey. I don't get to see Sal unless we were doing the podcast. So I had the idea, hey Sal, remember the idea that we wanted to do, which is a professional podcast that we get interviews with creators on, that we get advertisers on, that whole 9 yards. Why don't we make Absolute Comics, a follow-up to the Weekly Poll? And we chose not to use the Weekly Poll because technically Rob named that show that. So we didn't want to we didn't want to create problems with Rob if he did decide to get mad at us or something like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. So we made Absolute Comics, and for a little while we called it formally the Weekly Poll, just to kind of get the old fans to come back. And as that has gone on, it was the beginning of last year that I've been fortunate enough to start doing YouTube before it became the world's hardest job ever to get into, which is kind of what it is now. So I've been fortunately been doing this enough years that I have some traction and I have deals and I have people I know and stuff like that. But the issue we ran into is the issue I was running into is once COVID hit, I realized that if I ever stop this, everyone that I work with isn't going to get anything out of this. Like I can't hand my crew money or Sal money. So last year I had the idea of starting 5 different projects and we would not promote them for a year. And we would see if they can gain traction on their own. If I can grow something pretty fresh on YouTube. And if it can get traction, then that's more income for the team, not me. And one of those ideas was, Sal, why don't we take all the stuff we don't talk about in Absolute Comics and make Absolutely Marvel and DC? Because if you've been watching Absolute Comics, we don't normally talk about the shows or stuff very often. And when we do, it's like a special episode. So the idea was, why don't we make a channel that's all those special episodes? We talk about all the shows. We talk about all the movies, all the theories, the rumors, all that stuff. And he was on board. And that's why there's now like Absolute Comics and Absolutely Marvel and DC. And they kind of complement each other, but we're more focused on Absolutely Marvel and DC because that's the one that's intended to be kind of like a co-business with me and Sal.
Okay. So going back to like
That's the long version to get to your answer. One's for movies and TV shows, and the other's news.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm enjoying everything it is that I'm hearing. So going back over to the team, right? The team behind Comicstorian, Mangastorian, and more. How did that all like start? Like, how did that come to a head?
It was like 2014, 2015, and at the time, the YouTube was making enough money that I would consider it a part-time job. And I also make money from VA for my medical retirement. So for me, I was kind of set, and we were doing really well. And I had an idea, because I'm very business oriented when it comes to a lot of things like this. Mm-hmm. And I apologize if you can hear the vacuum in the background. They're doing renovations in the basement. I didn't know they were vacuuming this morning.
Oh no, it's no problem.
But basically what happened is I was at GameStop, and I decided to quit GameStop because YouTube was making enough money that I could kind of compensate for that income.
I worked there as well. I wouldn't recommend it.
I think, definitely don't recommend it. I was doing it for fun, and I made that very clear because I got out of the Army. Before the Army, I was a manager at GameStop. When I got out of the Army, since I was on medical retirement and working on YouTube, I would never leave the house. So I took the job at GameStop as a way to get out of the house and just chat with people again about one of the hobbies I enjoy, as opposed to sitting at the house and just being bored. I was like, I'll just go make some side cash or whatever. It'd be great. So when I was leaving, though, I had the idea, because at the time I was putting out 2 videos a week. It was a Monday video and a Friday video. That's all I was putting out. And I was like, okay, well, if we're successful at 2 videos a week, and I can't get to all the comics I want to talk about, what if I were to hire somebody to kind of help me fill the gaps? Maybe if we did 4 a week. Because my idea was, if I can do it 2 a week, we make this income. If I can get to 4 a week, would that actually double it? And I would test it. So I hired Dan as the first employee with the intention of, you'll be here for 6 months. If we see growth, we can talk. But he was supposed to go back to college. He was like, I'm on a break for the rest of this year. And so we were going to hire him for 6 months. He was going to leave, and then I would go find other editors to kind of actually build a business out. Okay. But he ended up never leaving. And we just kept hiring people because it would allow us to increase the output. That's how there's so many videos on Comicstorian on a daily basis, because there's 3 editors at this point between all the channels. We have 2 writers to ensure that we're on track with podcasting and the scripts and all that other stuff. There's 2 co-hosts that join me on various other things. And then there's like various other people that just kind of fill in other gaps and do production and handle deals and things like that at this point. Okay. But that was why that's why I started hiring people. It's just like, well, because as we get bigger and bigger, anything I didn't want to do, I would hire someone to do.
I get that. Now, the team members, right? Are any of them like friends from like childhood? Like, did you grow up with them, or are just all of them people that you met later on down in life?
My brother, obviously, I knew him at my childhood. But no, everyone else that's currently working for us, I met them all through GameStop. And the original arrangement was that they were just employees, because I had other people I hung out with here in Colorado. Mm-hmm. But as the years went on, those people kind of dispersed and did their own thing, and I haven't really spoken to many of them. And I just ended up hanging out with the guys here. We've all just kind of become like best friends at this point. We're hanging out every day. Kind of the nature of when your job is playing video games, talking about comic books, and finding ways to bring that information to people, you end up just hanging out all day and doing those things. So
yeah, that's the dream. Yeah. So video games are a major part of your life, I would assume, seeing as how you wrote a paper back in college about how addictive MMORPGs can be.
Well, you did your research. I don't think I've mentioned that too many times.
I definitely did. So I would say, what video games do you feel like have been like most influential in your life?
Okay, I know this is gonna sound corny, but the most influential one for me was actually Metal Gear Solid. Okay. Because the hardest part in my life, I had a alcohol problem and a drug problem before getting into the Army, and that's kind of, the Army cleaned all that up for me. Mm-hmm. But when you first come out of those problems and you're going into something like the Army and you get to boot camp, it's probably the hardest thing ever, because your body's fighting against you, mentally you're broken, and they're trying to break you down even further. And what got me through the Army was every time that I felt like I couldn't do it anymore, I would start to hum the Metal Gear Solid theme song in my head. And I would picture myself as Solid Snake, able to overcome whatever gets in front of me. And I know that sounds lame and corny because it's a video game character, but that's what got me through. And everything in my life has been like the discipline I learned from the Army and how to handle problems and management, all that came out of the Army. So if I didn't get through boot camp and got kicked out with everyone else that got kicked out, that would have been the end. So I attribute Metal Gear Solid as the biggest like what got me to where I am right now, which is kind of weird and lame when you think about it. Most people have like human idols and heroes they look to. For me, it was Solid Snake.
See, that I don't look at that as a lame story. I look at that as more inspirational, right? Mine is definitely a little bit more lame. Like, cause my parents did not like video games as a kid. You know, they were the typical video games are bad for you. They watch your brain. They can never do anything for you, this and that. But then one of the reasons why this is forever my favorite game, one of my favorite games of all time, and why I believe video games can actually be helpful in so many ways other than just giving you an outlet. Assassin's Creed 3. I passed my history final because of that game.
That's amazing.
I passed my history final because of that game. I knew about the Boston Tea Party. I knew about the Redcoats were coming. Everything. And when I told my teacher that, she was shocked.
Please tell me you didn't also say that there was an assassin named Connor running around. Oh, I think I lost you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, no, I did. I definitely did. And she didn't know what to say. She just told me to go back. She just told me to go back to my seat. Yeah, but video games, if anything is lame, it's mine. It's mine.
It's what I like. When I was a kid, I didn't really follow much modern day stuff. I played video games. I read comic books, and did drugs and alcohol. Like, I really didn't pay attention to the world. So the most inspirational thing for me was Solid Snake, because this is back in Metal Gear Solid 1, where he was just a normal guy. He was just really good at his job.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like this crazy clone with powers and nanites, and you know what I mean? Like, this was just a guy who did a job. That was it back then.
So you're also a published writer who's won awards for the Weekly Pull podcast. As you know, we brought that up in the later on. Well, not later on. I'm losing my words. You brought that up before. There we go. What are some of the things that you have written, and what would you say is your most favorite item of literature that you published?
Well, I've only published 2 things at this point. There's a book that I don't talk about very often. I don't even remember. We made it 5 years ago. And the idea was talking about, because a lot of people like to have this argument that comics are failing because they're just not good. Comics aren't selling as well as the 90s because they're just not good. So I wrote a whole book about my theory that comics are not selling as well because there's a lot more competition in the entertainment space. When I was a kid, it was one video game a month, and then I'd read whatever comics came out. Nowadays, between TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and the internet and video games and movies, there is. And everyone likes to go, oh, they're just not selling well because they're not as good. I'm like, no, it's because I can go spend $4 on a comic and spend 20 minutes reading it, or I can spend 20 minutes looking at TikTok for free. That's why. That's the difference here. So I wrote a book about that, and it was all up talking about that and how the future has gotten to where it is. And in the book, we also referenced a lot of the original superhero movies, which also made things look poorly. The reason I don't talk about it very much is because it was one of those companies that would publish a YouTuber's book, and they had a deadline to get it out in April. And Dan and I, because I got it with 2 buddies of mine, Dan and Jason, and we wrote this book together because I didn't have time to do the whole thing myself. So I brought in 2 buddies to help out. And we got to March, and it needed to be edited. And I told them I'm gonna need a delay because I don't have it edited. It's got bad grammar, bad punctuation. Like we just jotted it all down. We had to turn it into a book now, you know. And they told me just send it over. We'll get it edited, and they didn't touch it. So they published our rough draft, which is why I don't promote it very much because it makes me look really bad.
That sucks. That sucks.
Yeah. But then the Bloodshot thing is actually because for the last 5 years. And I'm more proud of that one because I actually got to write a comic from like scratch and like get to come up with what I wanted to do. But for about 5 years now, I've been trying to find a way to get into writing comics. And like I did the initial thing of like I started at the very beginning of like, okay, I'm just gonna find the natural way to break into comics. That doesn't exist. There's no easy path to go write comics or even get considered to write a comic.
Yeah.
You just don't. You have to get somebody to let you write the first comic or the first couple with some indie or self-published line, and then you climb the ladders. But I couldn't even get the originals to let me in, like the initial line. So then as the years went on, I started promoting it as, look, you let me write anything. I will literally write anything, and I'll promote it on Comicstorian. Just let me write anything. And still people wouldn't take that and would not give me a chance to write anything significant.
Yeah.
So what eventually came out of that was they gave me the shot with Bloodshot. And we wrote the Bloodshot thing, and I went through the whole editor process, and we got ready to promote it, and they shelved it. And it just disappeared. And I was like, I don't ever want to be in this comic book industry again. And I know it's only one comic book, but I'm doing well in other divisions. I don't need this to be a thing. So I'm not even going to fight about this anymore. And the reason they shelved it was that the management at the time got fired, and the new management came in and just put it on the shelf. Yeah. 2 years later, new management came in, and they found it. And that's how it got published, because they were like, we have a script, because it was completed pages. They did the art and everything.
Okay.
We have completed pages of a Bloodshot backup written by the Comicstorian. Why are we not publishing this? So just the journey of getting that out there and kind of reigniting my desire to write something, which is what I'm doing right now with my own personal project that we're going to figure out how we're going to publish it later. Like, to get to that, like that's why I'm proud of that, because it got out there, it got a good reaction, people liked it, and I want to write more. So,
well, much due respect to the manager that found it and decided to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate him. He's great.
Yeah. So, backing off the question before last, like with video games and the MMORPG, I know that, again, you love Marvel and DC tons. Have you heard anything about the Marvel MMORPG that's going to be coming out in late 2023? And are you planning on picking it up, seeing as how I believe the lead head on it also worked on both City of Heroes and DC Universe Online?
I love MMOs. I don't know anything about the game because they haven't. I've had information about a lot of superhero games early, and I hate it because, for example, Gotham Knights I knew about 4 years ago, and for 4 years I couldn't say anything. Yes,
4.
Now I can talk about it.
What?
I went in to play Lego Marvel Superheroes, and they had all of the stuff out for Gotham Knights sitting in front of me.
Jesus.
And they didn't realize it. And I walked out of the Lego Superheroes, and they let me wander the office for a minute. And I walked down the hallway, and they had it on this big whiteboard. All the characters from Gotham Knights, the plan, the strategy, things like that. And I was there with Dan, and we both looked at it, and we're like, oh, I think that's the DC Legends game, the app game. And then we're looking at it, we're like, I was talking about, like, Arkham stuff. Like, I don't know, it's probably not the same game. They probably had it more linked to Arkham back then and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know? But it's like, and then we realized, and I'm like, wait. And I said it out loud to the PR person because she walked over at the time, and I'm like, I think this is a game that's coming out. She goes, yeah, good thing you signed that NDA, huh? And I'm like, fuck.
Oh my, what? Okay, wait. Did you know anything about Suicide Squad?
That one I didn't know anything about.
Okay.
The one on the board was the cast from Gotham Knights. It showed the city. It showed the plans. Bear in mind, this was 4 years ago, so a lot of it's probably changed from what I did see.
Yeah.
But I knew, and it wasn't even called Gotham Knights. There was no title on it. But I knew about Gotham Knights that long ago.
Jesus. Like, meanwhile, this whole time, I've just been sitting here praying and hoping that we get to see Cassandra as a DLC character. Jesus.
It's hilarious too, because like, it was that one and another game that I got early access to. And so for almost a year, the other game people knew existed, and they'd be like, what's your opinion on it? I always had to respond with, I'm under NDA and know far more than I should. I'm not even talking about it. Like,
like I don't want to get targeted for anything.
Exactly. I don't want to missay something and like I'm now going to get a lawsuit on my hands.
Yeah, because nowadays on the internet, especially on Twitter, you can say one thing and there will be more than enough people that can figure out exactly what it is you meant or you're talking about just based off that one phrase. And it's crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why I'm just like, but yes. So I don't have any knowledge in the Marvel games. The ones that I've ever gotten knowledge on have been WB.
Okay.
But the Marvel game I know nothing about. When it comes to MMOs, I love them. I don't have time for them anymore. Final Fantasy XIV probably and Destiny are the two that I can mildly keep up with. Okay. And that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard that. So you do have multiple channels and a few podcasts going on, right? All at the current time. Have you ever at some point gone, I think I have more than enough channels, or I need to make more and more and more and more, like you're just collecting Infinity Stones at this point?
I'm collecting Infinity Stones at this point. I am actually, so up until 2021, the goal of every year was to launch one new channel and see if I can make it a success. 2 of those were Comicstorian, because it got shut down twice. Each time it got wildly successful, so that was great.
Yeah, because I would say it's hard. Let's say, like, because with the manga, I do get that, because it's especially hard getting like translated panels and everything like before they actually really get here.
Yeah, so Comicstorian was one of our side projects we did in one of the years. That did really well. The first one lasted like 3 years, and that one actually had its own staff on it. They had their own writer, voice actor, and editor over there. So like we branched the entire company into doing that one. We also launched a list channel that did not succeed, and I shut down. And we tried. There's a couple of them. Some of them weren't always channels. We tried some other things on the side. The podcast network was one of them we did, and that obviously is working. Mm-hmm. But 2021, so 2020 when COVID hit, I was like, that's it. I'm gonna like pseudo retire. I'm just gonna not really do much. We actually got copyright striked by WB without talking to DC. They didn't talk to DC. They just decided to come in. So DC had to clean it up. But that put a little bit of a fear in me that I was like, you know what? This could shut down tomorrow. So I'm just going to kind of retire, pocket the money that I can make, and figure out what my next project is. And so I kind of like worked on my voice acting, trying to see if I can get a manager. And I've been working on my artwork to see like, oh, maybe I'll just do commissions on the side. Because I originally, before all of this, was an art major, like way back when I was like 18. So like I was working on some side things and looking up the next step of what I would do after Comicstorian. And that was boring, man. Like I just sat around the house bored out of my mind half the time. So end of 2020, I said, you know what? We've always launched one project every year, and that seems very feasible. Why don't I test myself? How many can I make in the year of 2021? 2021. Make them successful, and can I keep at least 2 of them making money by the end of the year? That was like my personal goal. Okay. So that's why we launched Absolutely Marvel in DC. We launched Absolutely PlayStation Steam Gamers. That was our attempt at doing gaming news. We launched another Comicstorian attempt.
Third time.
Because what I did was I went to the team and I said, I want to launch 4 channels. Everyone give me your idea of what you want to work on. So I'm not just forcing you to work on something. Mm-hmm. So that was what the plan was with that. And so that's how we got all of those channels up and running. And Dungeons & Ale was the 4th one. That was our Dungeons & Dragons channel. Yeah. And so Comicstorian got shut down again. PlayStation and Steam Gamers, the team on it just wasn't as committed as I would like. So I had to make a cut over there. But we kept Absolutely Marvel in DC. And then this year, we launched the gaming channel. Because during all of this, we got a deal on Facebook to do Facebook gaming. And they cut the deal off in February. So we just moved all of that over and decided to make a YouTube channel out of it. Because we were doing that on the side. We were doing gaming stuff on the side of all 4 of those channels. So we launched the Ben and Friends gaming channel on YouTube. And we now we're also working on a very creative project. The idea is that we're going to write our own comic book. And it's a horror story about a guy trying to save other people set in these horror situations. And every time he meets one of those, like it'll be like a 3 or 4 page comic release at a time. And then every time he meets somebody, we have an audio drama of that short story featuring that person. Okay. So it's this whole elaborate thing we're trying to release that we're coming out with. So we have that one, we have the gaming channel, and then there's another one in the works that I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, but we're working on it. So we have 3 more this year. Okay.
Okay. So 2 very quick side questions based off the answer that we just got. So voice acting. If there was any character in the DC universe that you would want to voice act, who would it be?
Red Hood. If I could ever be Red Hood, I'd take it. Or Batman. If they take me, anybody in the Bat family, I'll take it. I'll even come in as Batgirl. Like I'll just do that.
Okay. All right. Well, that answers the second question. So now, being a creator like yourself, right? Has there ever been times where you felt like you were under stress with your content, like you're not doing enough and you know that, or you feel like you can do better and you're struggling to do so?
For me, that's a constant battle back and forth. I try not to get like full of myself. I've known way too many creators who are like, oh my God, I'm the most amazing thing ever and I can do no wrong. Mm-hmm. That's why if you ever check my community posts or if you check our Patreon or if you go to our Discord, I'm constantly asking for community feedback on what's going on. What series should we work on? Do you guys think I should work on this? Do you want to know that? That doesn't mean I take everyone's advice because that's literally like hundreds of people telling me what they think I should do. But I never feel like I'm doing enough on Comicstorian or the other channels. I always feel like I'm failing someone, and I don't know if that's like an internal thing that I have or whatever it is, but it keeps me constantly driving to make every project better. more accessible, more ready for people. Because if people can't get into my content, it doesn't matter how good the content is. The barrier for entry is too high.
Okay. And well, in terms of the opinions for the Comicstorian channel, this is a question that I personally have because I think I might have seen you say something about it. Will we be seeing Batman Beyond Zero Year come to the channel anytime soon?
Is there a Batman Beyond Zero Year? What is that?
I believe it's the run that's centered after Bruce Wayne's death.
Oh, that's the one coming out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna cover that.
Okay, cool.
I didn't know it was called Zero Year.
It's set.
I don't understand what they're doing with that. The short story says who killed him.
Yeah, but apparently he's looking. But apparently he not only has a year to hunt down his killer, which is weird.
That's what I'm like. What are you talking about? You did the story. It was great. It was an amazing story, and he found the killer and removed it. Like what? How is he looking? What?
The only thing you can say is what to that.
I think they're just gonna redo the story but make it longer. I feel like that's what they're doing.
I hope. If any, I don't know what to say about it. I don't know what to say. But,
I'm gonna cover it, but I'm gonna tell you right now. If we get to the end of the 6 or 12 or however many issues this is, and it's just the AI Bruce Wayne again. I'm gonna find that so funny because that means that somebody approved that short urban legend story, and then somebody else came in and said, "What the hell? This could be a big series. Let's do that."
So going back over to comics, right? Now, have there been any comics that you've read and you thought were decent or more than decent, regardless of the controversy or hate that might have came with said comic?
Do you have any examples? Because most of them I find to be a lot better than people are claiming.
Like for example, the Civil War 2 storyline. I know that.
Oh, that was trash.
Yeah.
That was trash. That was so pointless. The character motivations made no sense. That was literally just them going, shit, we need something that says Civil War. And I feel like Bendis just grabbed a random story out of his thing and was like, I can make it about superheroes. Like,
yeah. That's pretty much the gist I'm getting at. Have there been any comics that you like that had controversy attached to it?
None that had legit controversy, like Civil War 2. I didn't like that one. Most of the ones that I hear controversy about is the angry side of the comic book fandom that I don't even think reads current comic books, where they argue about like, oh, Miss Marvel's terrible. We don't need a Muslim character, or Miles Morales is terrible. We don't need a black character. And it's like, if you guys read the book, they're really good. What is wrong with you? Yeah. That's normally the kind of controversy I hear that I ignore and I go read anyway.
Yeah.
I'd say the only one that ever even lined up at all was Captain Marvel for a little while was not good, but that got really good and no one wants to read it. So like because of stupid controversy like that.
Yeah, and it definitely sucks. And I've grown to like Miss Marvel too, especially after like playing her in Marvel's Avengers, because I knew about her before Marvel's Avengers, but after going through her story there, that made me go and look up more and more of her comics. Like for example, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who don't read comics know that because she was so impactful, there's a law named after her called Kamala's Law, which prohibits any underage superheroes from engaging in superhero activities.
I think the biggest moment of controversy that everyone was freaking out, even the loud minority and a lot of them normal fans, was there was that brief period in Marvel where all the editors didn't communicate. That's how they promoted it, at least. And every superhero was swapped out. That was when we had Jane Foster Thor. We had Miles as Peter. No, Miles wasn't full-time Peter at the time, but we had Kamala Khan. Like, there was all these new superheroes to replace everybody. I think that was when Sam Wilson was Captain America, too. And everyone was like, oh my God, they're just getting rid of every superhero. And the problem with that controversy was that argument was right. They got rid of every superhero. Everyone was swapped out. Oh, Riri was Iron Man at the time?
Yeah.
If you hear the story, they didn't communicate. Every division of Marvel was just thought it'd be fun to introduce a new character around the same time. They didn't do it intentionally.
Was Amadeus included in that?
What's that?
Was Amadeus included in that?
Yeah, that was when he was Hulk. Yeah. Okay. And what always irritated me during that period of comics was everyone was arguing, and that's when a lot of the I don't read comics fans came out, because a lot of those stories are really good. Like a lot of those are really solid storylines. They all had their ups and downs, but whenever like Amadeus Cho's Hulk he'd have like 3 good stories and then a really bad one, and then everyone would just harp on that one bad one. You know, it was such a weird time as a comic fan because I'm sitting here like Jane Foster Thor is incredible. Amadeus Cho's not bad, but it's not great, but definitely not enough to go crap all over it. You know, Miles Morales and Kamala have been around for how many years now, and you're just now noticing them? Like, what are you all arguing about?
Yeah, I can speak on that because I definitely have quite a few friends and somewhat friends who will say everything that they can about comics and will not pick up a single book.
And that's just it. Like, if you're reading the comics and you want to talk to me about the intricacies of the actual storyline and why you dislike it, we can have a conversation. But if your argument is, well, no, Thor's a girl now and I don't like that. Did you buy Thor before that? No. Then don't talk to me. Like
that right there. I couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
So, all right. So next up, now, would you say there's a certain like book or a run of comics that you would like to add to your collection? Because I'm more than positive you have an extremely large collection. Is there a certain run that you would like to add? And if you don't already have it, has it been hard to
That's
find?
what I'm trying to think. What don't I already have that I want? I think I'm going to try to find all the Spider-Man 2099 issues. We're covering that on the channel right now, and I know not a lot of people are watching that series, but I just love it, so that's why I keep doing it.
I am. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of.
Isn't it insane?
Yeah,
I'm a fan. I never read past like 15, I think, when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything's just a drug-induced like 2099 story at this point.
Let me see. Who do you have next? So, what would you say is your? Actually, no. That's the next question. This one. Who would you say has the bet? You probably know who I'm about to say. Who has the better rogues gallery in your opinion, down from the personal relationships with the character to their motivations and so on and so forth? Batman or Spider-Man?
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Most people say DC or Marvel, and I'm like, DC easy, because Marvel likes to turn all of them into good guys. I would say Batman for almost the same exact reasoning. Spider-Man has a tendency, it's Marvel across the board. Marvel has this tendency that if a villain is popular, they need to become an anti-hero, which has always been my big issue. Very few heroes can you think of. And I challenge you to try and give me some, because there's only ever like 3 people bring up that have never been a superhero. Because even Spider-Man's rogue gallery has worked with him. Like, they're all superheroes, basically, at some point. Batman and DC likes to keep them as villains, and that's what I like about that.
Yeah, I would say Sandman, but Sandman's definitely been a hero at some point before, because I know some of his storylines are like very reminiscent of some of like 2 Batman villains, specifically Clayface and Killer Croc. So.
And Batman has done that a few times, like Killer Croc and Clayface both turn good guy. But they have more villains that stay villains. Yeah. You know, even if they have to work with Batman for a minute, normally at the ending they try to like betray him, kind of a situation. While in Marvel, the villains just become good guys because they want to try and sell a comic book. Like Loki became a good guy. The best one people like to give me is Galactus. Like, Galactus is a villain. No, he became the Lightbringer. He became a good guy for like a year.
Has Electro ever gone good?
Elektra is Daredevil right now.
Electro. Electro. I don't think Electro's ever gone good.
Yeah, I think that you might have that one, but they also replaced him recently. He's not around anymore.
They replaced him because I know the only other one I know of is I can't.
You might have someone finally, because normally no one can bring anyone up.
Yeah, because like the only other Electro that I know of is Francine.
Yeah, she's the new one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maxwell Dillon, because he kind of became like anti-hero. No, not really. Like he was okay in the movies, but no, it looks like he stayed mostly a villain. He just, other than the occasional team up kind of like thing, but nothing crazy.
Okay, so that's one. That's one. Because
you did it. You're the first guy that I've asked that question to that did not just go Galactus.
See, because I almost said Kraven. I almost said Kraven, but I feel like Kraven is definitely going anti-hero.
Nah, he's flipped back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. So, let me see. So, what would you say is your favorite comic book game of all time?
For me, it's always a toss-up between Arkham City, not Arkham Knight. I hate the tank. Arkham City or Spider-Man. I think Arkham City more over Spider-Man, not because of like a fan favorite. Oh, I love Batman more than Spider-Man. I love both those characters pretty evenly. It's more that Arkham City was breaking new ground with the idea of doing that, a superhero in an open world that we could do everything.
Yeah.
Well, Spider-Man kind of took what worked with Arkham City and then elaborated on it into a very Spider-Man-esque universe. I love both games equally. I don't want the haters to come at me, but if I got to pick one, I don't know if Spider-Man would have existed if Batman didn't come first.
I will say this, and you all can fight me on this regardless. I feel like the combat for Batman wouldn't have existed if we didn't get Captain America, the First Avenger, the video game.
That 360 game?
Yes, because the combat's because if you go back and look at it and you play it, you can tell that there were definitely some elements of the Arkham series that were incorporated from that game.
Okay, I've never played it, so I can't argue about that one.
Yeah, like
when that thing came out, I'm like, who cares? Like,
yeah, like that's my personal opinion. But side question to this: do you agree that the X-Men Origins video game was better than the movie?
Oh yeah, the X-Men Origins Wolverine game.
Yes,
that game is incredible.
Yes, thank you. yes. I was hoping to hear.
And I love that they didn't even touch the movie. Yeah. It was like, we don't even care. We're doing our own thing.
And they also did, a little justice by giving more backstory to certain characters. Because, like, for example, for people who don't know this, because X-Men Origins are connected to like the first half of the X-Men movies, we saw Nightcrawler pop up in X-Men 2, and we never seen him again after that until like the new era. Game, in a way, if you look at X-Men Origins, the video game, as canon, it tells you who Nightcrawler's parents were, because Mystique was pregnant like during the game's run. She was pregnant in game.
Okay.
And Mystique,
I thought it just stayed completely out of the account. I didn't realize it kind of linked into it.
Yeah, because if it's all canon, we already know John was there. He was a teleporter. Clearly, everybody thought he was Nightcrawler when we first saw him, and he turns out he wasn't. And then Mystique, who again in comics is known to have been Nightcrawler's mother on various occasions, that kind of justifies at least the X-Men 2 version of where he come from and like who his parents were. I have no idea about the new era Nightcrawler.
I didn't know that either. That's I gotta replay that. Isn't it on Steam now? I think.
It should be. It should be.
I think it is. Now you got me wanting to play that again.
So going over to like the CW shows and whatnot. What are your opinions on the CW shows? More specifically, Superman and Lois and Stargirl, if you've seen those.
I've not seen Stargirl. I saw like the first 3 episodes of the first season, and I thought it was really good, and I wanted to watch it, but I don't know what was going on. I think it aired at a time when I wasn't like paying attention. Superman and Lois, I think, is incredible, and I think if they just pull it away from CW and let HBO have full control, we could get rid of the little remnants of CW. Yeah. I feel like what hurts Superman and Lois is no one wants to give it a shot after the bullshit the CW's pulled.
Yeah,
where Flash has gotten worse, and Arrow kept getting worse, and Supergirl kept getting worse. Like, CW does a great job of just doing all these amazing ideas in the first couple of seasons, and then they just, like, don't care, is what it feels like. We keep getting showrunners that don't care. My biggest complaint recently was the showrunner on Flash for last season kept making episodes about Allegra. And I'm like, the show's called Flash. Why do we have Allegra-centric episodes? Only to discover that the showrunner created Allegra in the comics. Which means, if you know how those contracts work, the more he uses Allegra in the show, the more he would get paid. So it made sense for him to use Allegra and focus on her. And then every time I'd say, like, oh no, Allegra's boring, give me Flash. Oh, well, some people care about Allegra. Apparently no one cares about Allegra because the show kept getting poorly reviewed. So... And I feel like that's the issue that CW kept running into. They just wanted to... They wanted to hype up and cater to their audience as much as possible. And if you watch CW on their app like I do, I let the ads play, and it's always like the same like 5 ads, and you can tell 100% who the demographic is. Okay, and that's what they're catering to, and I feel like that's what hurts Superman and Lois, because like Flash caters to that, Supergirl caters to that. And then you get over to Superman and Lois, and it doesn't at all. It's like a different idea, concept, even the cinematography. But it's on CW, so people assume.
See, now, because so far, like, because in my opinion, I love Superman and Lois. If you ask me, they've not out of the past 2 seasons, I don't feel like they've had a bad episode.
The only thing I consider a bad episode is the first season, episodes 3, 4, and 5 felt like they were meandering, because at the time we all expected it to just be CW.
Yeah.
So I admit, part of my mentality going into those episodes was, oh god, it's CW high school bullshit again. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe going back now they wouldn't be as bad. But after those 5, and the show just ramped up for me, and I've been hooked on it since then.
Yeah, and in terms of Stargirl, I mean, you know, it is like your normal typical teenager gets superpowers, and they're anxious to get into the world of crime fighting, but they have no idea what to do, and they end up causing more problems than they end up solving. The story, for one, is very solid. Luke Wilson, he does an incredible job as Pat Dugan. The combat, right? The fight choreography. In my personal opinion, the fight choreography reminds me of early Arrow fight choreography with just a little bit more of pizzazz thrown in there, right? In terms of the CW as a whole, Stargirl definitely has the best fight choreography. Between the Justice Society and the Injustice Society, it's a lot. Not to mention the first episode, because like you've seen the first episode of Stargirl, right?
I said I watched the first 3. I forgot it was airing, and then eventually someone's like, "Hey, you gotta watch Stargirl season 2." I'm like, "Season 1 ended?" Yeah. I just never got back to finish it.
Season 3 is currently filming, and I believe the main villain for that is, I believe it's like a Nazi general. I wanted to say Red Skull, but it's not Red Skull. It's DC's version. I can't remember.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, like I can't remember who it is, but he's gonna be the main villain going forward. Like for I think that was also the first time we saw Solomon Grundy in anything live action, and they did Solomon Grundy wonderful. And I say this all the time. People don't realize how, if Solomon Grundy actually had a brain, how dangerous he would be.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's what keeps him from not being dangerous.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue with the CW shows in general, though, is I don't even care about the catering to an audience, because I understand how demographics work. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, that's the demographic. That's who's going to watch your show. Just like, I mean, I understand at a Comicstorian, I know what my audience wants to see versus what I want them to watch. Yeah. What irritates me, and I think is causing their problems, is the format of a TV show. They can't just tell a story and be done. They have to have 20 episodes. You know, it's like what used to hurt the Netflix shows. Like, and I guarantee you watch the Netflix Daredevil, Luke Cage, all those, right? They're all great, but there's always that segment in the middle where you're like, oh, what is happening? Can we get back to the story?
Like, it just takes a hard left turn before it gets back on track, and it's weird.
It's so weird. Like, I remember the one specifically that stood out to me was, I think it was season 1 of Luke Cage. Mm-hmm. Like 5 episodes in or so, he's dealing with Cottonmouth, and then just he's out. We're doing something else for a few episodes. Why? Because you got to hit an episode count, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so let me see. So after this, what upcoming comic-related video game are you excited to get your hands on the most? Because we have
Gotham Knights.
Gotham Knights? Yeah.
Suicide Squad looks good, but Gotham Knights is just right up my alley. I just want to play that so bad.
Yeah, who are you planning on maining?
Red Hood, man. Come on. Yeah. I got that tattoo right here.
I'm the only person I know that's like planning on maining Batgirl day one.
I forget who. Someone on our team said they were going to do Batgirl. Yeah.
Oh, tell that person I said hello. So, next question. What upcoming comic run are you looking the most forward to reading?
Upcoming comic run?
Yeah.
This new 2099 Return they're coming out with in May.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole new 2099 thing happening. Which is weird. I didn't know that when we started doing 2099. I was just like, hey, I'm going to find a classic book I want to cover.
And now it's a hole that you got sucked into, and you're loving every bit of it.
Yeah.
So, let me see. Now, do you think Batman is a bad teammate for the Justice League?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Depends what version. because he can be a good teammate. Just normally he's written as not being a good teammate. Yeah. Like most writers like to write him as like, I'm not really in the Justice League. I just give you guys all my money and I just show up when you need me. And but I don't want your help. Leave me alone. You know, like when he's done properly though, I do think it could work.
Okay. Do you agree that Nightwing would be a decent leader for the Justice League or no?
I think he'd be better. Yeah, I think he'd be much better. That'd be a book. Nightwing comes in to lead the Justice League?
And what,
that'd be so awesome.
and what makes you say that?
Because he's Batman, but willing to work with others. He's the optimistic hope of Batman, but all the skill, ability, and know-how, and now the money. Because of Alfred leaving him all that cash.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's the biggest difference between them and everybody else they know, like not even just the willingness. He just has an overall better relationship with everyone.
Yeah, and he knows how to trust his allies. Yeah. It's always weird when they write Nightwing as like not trusting of allies. Suddenly, it's like that's not Nightwing though.
So how do you feel about where mutants currently are in the comics? Because the contrast between now with them being on Krakoa and let's say 10 years ago was vastly different.
There's an image I saw about this. I liked them when they were on Krakoa and Hickman was in charge of the whole thing. And ever since then, I found them boring and terrible. And there's a great image that someone linked me that shows this. And I'm trying to find it. Man, me and this guy talk way too much. Where is it?
Because I know.
It's like that horse drawing.
Yeah. Because I know Krakoa is like pretty much its own. It's his own nation. Like as of right now, it's kind of like Wakanda.
Yes. Well, it is, yeah. It's its own thing, which I think works, but the writers in charge of it just don't get it at this point, it seems like.
Okay.
Or they're just trying too much to do their own thing. I can't decide what it is between the two of those.
Okay. All right. Now, how do you feel about Moon Knight, the Moon Knight show, being in the MCU, but also being separate from all of the connected stories that are currently going on for the first season? Because I believe Oscar had initially stated that the reason why he signed on to do Moon Knight is because Moon Knight was going to be like its own thing. He feels like it'd be a much better opportunity to allow Moon Knight to explore his universe and everything that's there without needing to fully dive into the overall MCU as of right now.
I mean, I'm fine with that because that's what all the TV shows have basically done. I mean, they haven't really done any massive connecting things at the moment. I think that's what they're trying to do with Disney Plus. Yeah. They want to make them like extra, not required viewing. So, because like even WandaVision, you don't need to watch that. She's going to probably explain all the key bits at the beginning of Multiverse of Madness. Falcon Winter Soldier, he's technically you could cut that whole show out because the end of Endgame, he gets the shield.
Yeah.
You don't need to know about his journey of wanting to use it to watch the next Captain America.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what they're doing with Moon Knight at this point. Because like Hawkeye's going to be the same way. She's literally just going to show up and be like, I'm the new Hawkeye. And he's going to probably crack some joke like, yeah, she's the new Hawkeye. And then whoever she's talking to is going to be like, oh, okay. They're just going to mostly ignore the shows. At least what I'm seeing so far.
Okay. Now in terms of Ms. Marvel, how do you feel about that show as a whole, and what are your opinions on like some of the controversy and theories? Like, for example, the reason why her power set switched was because they're trying to make way for Reed Richards coming in.
I mean, it's a lot of theories. I guarantee that's why they did that. It doesn't make any sense to swap her power set out, especially since the video game has her with the proper power set and all the comic books have her with the proper power set. I feel like Marvel sat around and said, well, DC's not doing anything with the Green Lantern. We need to do something with we should do something that takes over that Green Lantern spot. So let's give her bangles that kind of do the same thing, because that way it's not magic or power. No, it is magic is what they're kind of leaning towards, which is causing problems in the Muslim community. But yeah, it makes sense that they just don't want too stretchy people.
Yeah.
But I don't, in my opinion, if you're going to do that, don't use Ms. Marvel. Like there's so many other kid superheroes you can make a show about that isn't Ms. Marvel. If you're not going to use Miss Marvel, why recreate everything about her?
And then, like, even with that, I more so look at it as whenever you go off that theory connecting her and Reed Richards, you have to think about the Echo characters that are in the MCU already. You have Iron Man, War Machine, and Rescue. You have Cap, Bucky, John, and now Sam. As you can sort of say, you have Hulk, and then you have Jennifer that's going to be coming in. If you look at like these comic characters, power-wise, Kamala is actually stronger than Reed. Reed has his intelligence is what puts him at the top. But like, for example, him being able to shapeshift, he can only really transform into other men that he can, like, that looks close to him or that he can get as close as possible to. Kamala can outright shapeshift. She has a one-off power for it, like, of being able to time travel, because she can shrink small enough to get into the quantum realm, and she's able to share her body mass with her past and future selves.
Yeah, I think my theory on why they've decided to do this, actually, like, it makes sense, the Reed one, I get that, but I think it's more to do with budget, in all honesty. I have a feeling it's probably easier to just make some kind of construct that they can just put around her. Yeah. It's faster for visual effects to just throw that on her arm and make it look like a hand, instead of trying to connect or have her running around in a green suit or any of that stuff, so they can stretch her out and things like that. Yeah. I think it's budget related, and they're just like, whatever. I mean, she only uses it like this, so we'll just make those, you know?
Okay, yeah. All right, now the final few questions, because we are coming up on our hour mark and whatnot. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Me personally, I'm expecting you to have like at least 10 more channels up and running by then. Like at least
10 more channels. Yeah, I mean, I just keep making them because they're fun to do. Like, that's like the overall goal. Would be cool if they become successful and make money, but it's more to just keep me and the team busy. Because we just get bored doing the same thing all the time. And due to the YouTube landscape, you can't really change what you're doing. So I have to keep doing the same thing all the time. So we made new channels so we can be creative, instead of like tanking Comicstorian and trying new stuff. So I can see us having 5 more channels.
That's the way around it. Now, I believe you did speak on this earlier in the interview, but you do have more stuff planned for the year, seeing as how like we're in late March, but it's still March. Is there anything upcoming that we should be excited for from the team at Comicstorian?
There's one thing that people have requested for a very long time that we're going to put in the 2099 spot. We're going to redo our Green Lantern videos, Blackest Night and Brightest Day, but we're doing it by doing the whole Green Lantern saga from beginning to end. Okay. So all the parts we never even covered.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I have a buddy that absolutely loves Green Lantern. His favorite one is Kyle Rayner, so I'm pretty sure he'll love that. Yeah, so that's one thing that people have been requesting from us for a long time. Can you guys go back in Green Lantern, do my Green Lantern? And I've said we're going to. My favorite was recently someone said, still waiting for that series you last talked about in 2019. It's coming. Okay, well, so with all of that being said, that marks the end of an interview. I had a more than wonderful time doing this, because if I'm being honest, I didn't think I was gonna be able to get the chance, like going from watching you day after day after day back when I was in high school to being able to do an actual video with you. That means a lot to me.
But a lot of fun talking to you. You hit me with questions that I don't normally get. Normally it's the same like 10. How did you start YouTube? What do you like about YouTube? How would I start YouTube? Like it's the same questions I always get.
I try.
Who's your favorite superhero?
I try to be different. I try to be different. I try to do as much research as possible on the people it is that I'm interviewing. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. One of the people that I look up to in terms of doing interviews is Nardwar.
No, that one I've never heard of.
Yeah, no, Nardwar. He's the type of person that, let's say, if you made a post on Facebook 20 years ago about something Superman related, he would be able to find out exactly what you said, not on the post, but what you said to the person that you were standing next to as you made that post.
that is a talent.
Yeah, like if you go look at any of his videos, everyone gets shocked because there's information that was never public that he knows. There have been multiple people that thinks he works for the FBI. That's just how good he is at doing research on people. So that's definitely somebody I look at as an inspiration. But
yeah, that's a good way to look at it, though. Because I mean, I don't normally do a lot of these interviews because I'm very busy and they are all the same questions. So it's just kind of like, all right, but you were like, oh, I'm open. And I'm like, I got some time. We'll see what's up.
Yeah, but again, thank you so much for stopping by. I will leave a link to his channel down below so you guys can all go and take a look at it because I very much recommend it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you guys will never miss out on any of my future content, especially interviews, because who knows, I may have other special interviews coming. I may get Comicstorian to come back for a part 2. Who knows? The universe, I don't know where I was going with that, but I'll catch you guys in the moonlight. Peace out, everybody.
Hardest thing on YouTube, outros.
Peace out, everybody.